ultimately we're going to come up with a probability distribution table, bar graph for this data, but first some Excel tips and tricks. If I highlight all 50 data points, the first issue is that we've got all these numeric values, but we've also got symbols like the dollar sign and then the letters USD. We can get rid of those by going to Data, Text to Columns. First, we're going to get rid of the dollar sign by clicking on Fixed Width. Then next, down here you can see this little arrow. If you click on it, you can drag it wherever you'd like to, and that will fix the width. So in this case, I'm going to drag it so that the arrow, or where the break will occur, will be between the dollar sign and the first value, the first digit. Hit next. It'll verify that that's what you want to do, and finish. And then indeed, all the dollar signs are here, and it's split off that 500 USD. Next, we've still got the USD there that we want to get rid of, so I'll highlight everything once again. Go back to Text to Columns. Now I'm going to go delimited, or use delimited to describe where that break should be. This is where a character is used or is in place at the point in which we want to break it. Here, the default is just to have tab checked. If I check the space, you'll notice that as soon as I check the space, it splits it right there where that space was. If you had a comma or a semicolon or anything else, you could type it in here. That's separating your numeric values from whatever else, or the two numeric values that you're trying to use, whatever it might be. Hit the next button and finish. And we've got all of the individual data points by themselves. Last thing I want to do before we go to the new screen is notice that none of these numbers are in order. If I go to the Home tab, and then we'll sort. You can custom sort and tell it which column to sort. If you want a larger column, or a larger field, so you want, let's say, these two columns to go together, and then you can highlight all of it and custom sort. In this case, it's very simple. We just want to sort these values from smallest to largest. Notice again, because there's columns next to it, it's asking if we want to expand this selection. We do not. Sort it, and then indeed all these values are going to be ranked from smallest to largest. Okay. Ranking them from smallest to largest will help us. We'll go back over here to the table. I've already ranked them from smallest to largest and highlighted the different categories for this probability and frequency distribution. Okay. So first off, note that it really doesn't matter what ranges you choose, so the lower and upper limits for the range, as long as it makes sense and you've got plenty of fields, if you will. For example, you don't want 3 different categories here, or 3 different ranges to choose from, nor do you want 100. It's not going to make any sense with that. So we try to get usually about 20%, or no more than 20%, I should say, of the number of values that you've got. But that's still not a hard and fast number. In this case, I've got 50 values and 9 different ranges. So here, we can look at it and see we've got the 1 unit between 386 and 410. There's another value between 411 and 435, and so on. These upper and lower limits were not necessarily arbitrary. I tried several different ones. In the end, decided on a difference of 25 units, and I wanted it to go across this $500 value. So I wanted that to be inside one of these ranges, kind of dead center, because that's the mode of all the values. 475 is pretty close second, but 500 is far and away the greatest. Once we find these frequencies, we can add them up. You can just highlight here and then click the sum button, and that'll give us the total number right below it. In this case, you can see 50. Okay. Another option is to just come down here and type in, you can see in the formula bar, just type in that sum of those numbers. Next, our probability, which is really a relative frequency. We're going to take H4 in this case and divide it by the total number. Now, if this might be changing, you can use that cell, or you can just type 50. It really doesn't matter. In this case, just to show, I'll go ahead and type in that cell specifically. So H 13. Again, with the dollar signs, that forces it, no matter where we drag this green box, that forces this cell to always be the case. And then the one H4 here, just the cell next to I4 in this case. Then if I highlight that and drag it all the way down, we get all of our probabilities. Remember that all your probabilities should always add to 1, so I can click summation and verify that indeed they add up to 1. So this is our probability distribution, or relative frequency distribution. This is just our frequency distribution right here. In order to graph this, we can highlight, insert a bar graph. See, we've got a normal looking curve, about as good as it's going to get for these random prices. Go ahead and type probability, type, there it is, distribution here. And then the only downside to doing this is you'll notice, at least in this manner, you'll notice that the horizontal axis has numbers 1 through 9. That's just the first range, second range, third range, and so on. It's not very explanatory at all for our data. So I'll move this out of the way, and we'll go ahead and get these range values. Now right now I could tell it that I want 410 to be the label for this one, 435 to be the label for this column, and so on, but that's not going to be the complete picture. We want this entire range. Okay. So in order to make that a little bit more useful, I'm going to insert here. So if you right click and insert a row, then I'm going to use the concatenate function. So that's just equal, start typing it, even if I spelled it wrong. Concatenate, looks like I actually did well. Hit tab over, and then what this is going to do is it's going to combine all the text that I'm telling it to in a single cell. So in this case, what I'm going to do is tell it to combine F4, that's the 386 here, oops, and G4. You'll see what that does. When I hit the go button, hit enter, we just get 386, 410 right next to each other. That doesn't make much sense for a range, so I'm going to go up here and edit this formula so that I've got space and hyphen in there. That's how we'll usually denote the range. In this case, in order to just input text, we need to put it around quotes. So notice I just typed in quote, space, hyphen, space, and then end quote, and that will put that hyphen in there for us. It just makes things a little bit easier instead of having to type everything. Now I can drag this all the way down and see all of those ranges listed out. Lastly, I'll come over here and double click. Axis labels, doesn't look like that's the right piece, so we'll go back to selecting the data here. That's it. Under select data with these bar graphs, horizontal category axis label here. I can edit it. Then all we have to do is highlight the cells that I want to be the labels. Hit OK, and indeed each of those cells came up with an individual label. You can play around with this, make them go vertical, give them more space. There's any number of ways that you can make this a little bit prettier. Just carrying it out like that, you can still see those ranges pretty well. But this is how we have to come up with a probability distribution when your data excuse me, when your data is a continuous random variable as opposed to a finite random variable, which is what we've done in the past. As usual, if you have any questions, please let me know.